Hey there, thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dingus here with Liz Balmaseda from the Palm Beach Post, and we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Horrific shooting, 17 people left dead. Liz, as we come up on this 1-year anniversary, what has changed in Florida because of this?
Well, I think that Florida has become probably more militant because of this, and militant in various ways. You have the kids that have become very militant in when it has to do with the gun debate, and then there are other people like the parent that I just profiled in Sunday's paper, whose militancy has taken a completely different approach, and he blames the superintendent of the schools. He blames what he calls the lax policies and the lenient policies for allowing a series of events that he believes led to the shooting. He believes that guns are a distraction. So you have these various forces who are all sharing this horrendous pain and this horrendous loss, but they have taken their battles in different ways. So it's a very interesting thing. I really zoomed in on one area, and that was this one parent, and it was just kind of heartbreaking, really, to hear him speak and hear him recount that day.
Let's talk about that parent, Andrew Pollack. He lost his daughter, Meadow, in this shooting. Not only was she shot multiple times by the gunman, but then she tried to shield another student and was shot additional times. Tell us about your interview with him.
He was very focused, very on message, to the point that, usually you kind of, when you go to an interview, you have, you chit chat with your subject and you try to, find some kind of a, common ground a little bit to relax into the interview. And he was just very, very focused and very on message, and did not smile throughout the entire interview. And in fact, he said, "I have not smiled since that day." He feels that his life is over. When I asked him about the anniversary, what, if there were any special plans that his family was going to do, and he said, every day is February 14th. Every day is the day that my daughter was murdered. Every day I live it. So it wasn't just a devastating loss, but it's really kind of the loss of his life as he knew it. He used to be, he was a property manager, which he still kind of does. It's a family business, but he was a guy who went to the gym, not twice a week, but twice a day, very fit, very active, very outdoorsy guy. He also played lacrosse once a week. He had friends. He was a newlywed. He had just married his wife like a year earlier. And then all of a sudden, he said he wasn't particularly political, even though he did tell me he voted for President Trump, and he was a supporter of his, but he wasn't somebody who was like super political. All of a sudden, he is not only a father who's grieving, he is this father who's grieving, who's got this enemies list, who has a strong political beliefs. He supports not only the president, he supports our new Republican governor, just very, very active in trying to pass the measures that he wants. And the measures that he wants are to roll back anything that President Obama did with any kind of in terms of any kind of educational measures or anything like that. I mean, he really believes that there should be strict control over anyone who's even remotely a red flag at school, that kind of thing. So he's very, he's just very focused.
Now, you mentioned Mr. Pollack had what he's calling, perhaps a list of people that he is opposed to, elected officials. And He's very upset with the elected officials, a lot of them in Broward County, particularly the Democrats. Is that right? And
Yes.
so he would like to see the teachers, in many cases, if they're ready and willing and trained properly, to be able to carry guns on campus to protect students.
Oh yes, he does. He not only the teachers, he says, it could be the lunch lady. It could be anyone who passes this 150-hour course, which he says is a course that was designed for police officers and is just as intense, of course, as not just anybody who's going to be, allowed to carry a gun. He really believes that he says most shootings happen within 4 seconds, and there's no way that you can prevent it unless there's actually somebody there who's armed. That said, the blame he imposes it's really not even about the guns. It's more about the superintendent, who he thinks really needs to lose his job. The campus monitor, one of the campus monitors, who left a gate unmanned and unlocked. And then I guess the campus monitor was he had a view of that gate, and he saw the gunman get out of an Uber with a rifle bag, walk through the gate, make a beeline to this building that was filled with students. And even then, the campus monitor, according to police investigation, did not call Code Red. Code Red was not called until 24 people had been shot already. 17 of them died, so it's he has very specific people that he thinks contributed to not making the school safe that day. I came away with the feeling that there was a lot about the school that he did not know at the time. He had never heard of the shooter. He did not know that this campus monitor, for instance, had been investigated the previous year for allegedly sexually harassing students. And he did not know that one of those students was his daughter. The sense that I got from interviewing him was, here was a father who was trying to save his daughter again. All of these things are not just we're going to put these things in place, but it was almost like on some level a father who was still helpless in trying to save his daughter. So that part of it was incredibly heart-wrenching to see that. He did confront that campus monitor last week at the guy's new job. I think he's like a coach for a traveling youth league, and so he showed up at a park where he was working, and just he said, what did he say to him? He said, "I'm not through with you yet," is what the court record says. So that former campus monitor is pursuing getting a restraining order against him, and so it's really gotten to a point of it's gotten pretty hostile.
Liz, one last question for you. We're 1 year from this tragedy. What does the future hold, do you think? What are you hearing from people who are touched by this tragedy? How does Parkland move on from this?
I think that on some level, Parkland will not move on from this. On some level, Parkland needs to hang on to this so that in a way to keep other schools safe. That what was learned after Newton, what was learned after Columbine, what was learned after all these other school shootings. If Parkland moves on, then what will be learned? And that, I think, is something that is very firm in the minds of all of these survivors and their parents, that they are not going to allow anyone to forget this. They're going to be out there for their kids and for their lost friends and for that whole community. It's a very powerful, they have a very powerful message, even though they've expressed it in different ways. The underlying message is very powerful.
Liz Balmaseda from the Palm Beach Post, one of many GateHouse media journalists who has covered this tragedy at Parkland over the past year. Thanks for your time. Of course, if you would like to read more of the coverage, you can check out the Palm Beach Post website and many of our other GateHouse properties in Florida, the Florida Times-Union, the Herald Tribune in Sarasota, and so on. Thanks, Liz, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks.